Hello and welcome to Heather's Gluten-Free Adventures. So I have a friend who asked me to show her how I costed out buying gluten-free grains and flours versus just regular wheat, and just kind of find out how and where to find it, where it's least expensive, and do all that kind of stuff. And so I'm just going to show you. So I just did purchase some stuff from Azure Standard, not a ton because I'm not there yet. I don't really know all of my grains and all that kind of stuff yet. So just let me point you down here real quick and show you what I did get. Thanks. Okay, so I got some cumin because I'm currently out of cumin. Here I got some cassava flour. I do have tapioca starch, which is the starch of the cassava root, but this is the actual cassava root that they dehydrate and just grind it all up into a powder. So it's more than just the starch of it, it's the actual tuber. This here, and this is 5 pounds. This here is a 5-pound bag of millet. And this here is a 5-pound bag of teff, which I don't know anything. I've never tried or used teff. I got these in the small 5-pound sizes because I don't know how I'm going to react to the cassava or the teff. I've already used a little bit of millet and I like the millet, but I'm not sure I love the millet. So I just got a little bit more. If I continue to use it and still like it, I will buy a larger package of it. And then here, I got a 25-pound bag of sorghum because I have discovered I love sorghum. So this is where, when I've already tried a 5-pound bag of it, I've decided I love it. I'm going to get it in bulk. And this feels like it is the grain because I have this beautiful grain mill back here that, let's see. I have this beautiful grain mill back here in the corner. And I can buy the grains. And if you don't have the option to do that and you have to do the flours, then you have to do the flours. For me, it was worth the investment. I was going into whole wheat. I was going into trying to do more of the whole grain, fresh milled. I do believe that there is some benefits to the fresh milled versus who knows how long it's been sitting on the shelf flours. So I'm really kind of still trying to keep with that whole grain, even though it's not wheat. If you need to use flour, though, you have to use flour, and it'll still work and function for you in meeting the needs of whatever it is that you're trying to create. With that being said, I'm going to move you over to another location, and we're going to go over how I priced and costed everything out. Okay, so first of all, I want to point out that it is going to be spendier to buy gluten-free grains than wheat. In a situation that I'm in, either I spend that extra money and get these more expensive grains, or I do completely without. And I could do that too. I could do, I like to have bread once in a while though, and so finding different ways to make breads, make cookies, make muffins, you know, the things that, granted, you don't have to have them to survive, but every once in a while it kind of makes eating food nice. So I went through, and I'm going to show you the process that I did. So like for about a 25-pound bag of hard red wheat, I think I found it for like $20.63 at Azure Standard. That's 5 cents an ounce. 14 cents an ounce on Amazon. There's other places that you can do. There's like, I think it's a place called, oh, I cannot remember the name of it. Totally drawing a brain fart on it. There's other places that you can go to get wheat. Like I had a friend who, they own a farm here in Idaho, and they bring out pallets. Like they get together with the community or with like members of our church, and we all get together and we buy pallets of wheat together. And then like say I bought several buckets of hard red, hard white, some soft white, and pinto beans. I mean, they offer things, corn, dent corn, stuff like that. And so you can find co-ops like that, or you can find groups of friends that can purchase things in huge bulk like that, and you split it up. You do however much you're able to do. So there's ways that you can get your stuff. Now that was for wheat, and I don't remember what the cost of that was, but it was cheaper than either of these. And so, with wheat, I mean, I had soft white, I had white hard, I had hard red, I used emmer, I had kamut, I had, if that's how you, I don't even know if I'm saying that right. I still have some einkorn. I have them sealed in jars or buckets that I've never opened, and so they will be good for years and years and years and years. I don't know that I'll ever be able to eat it again, but that's besides the point. I'm showing you the cost and how I broke it down. And I did it on paper because to me it was a lot easier to do it this way than trying to copy and paste everything over to a computer, which I like to do stuff on the computer, but this was better for me visually. Another cost that you're going to want to look at is a grain mill. And grain mills are expensive. You can go through Pleasant Hill Grains. They sell, and that was who I was trying to think of actually. Pleasant Hill Grains, you can also buy wheat and all kinds of stuff from them. There's a new company here in Idaho that is selling ancient grains and grains that are supposed to be, and if I can find it, I'll put the name of it in here. But if you're interested in that kind of stuff, they do have things like einkorn and other wheat that hasn't been modified or done any, I don't know all the details. I've kind of quit looking at those things. But Pleasant Hill Grains, you can get, the cheapest one that I saw was an Impact Steel Burr grain mill for $300. And now steel burr, here's my thoughts on this. There's two different kinds of grain mills out there. There's a steel burr or there's a stone grinder. And the purpose, some people believe that having your stone mill is better for your wheat than the steel burr because it doesn't heat your wheat up as much. My question to that is, if you are fresh milling your wheat and you're about to put it in an oven at about 350 degrees, what harm is using a steel burr going to do when that is not going to get as hot as baking your wheat? So, I mean, if anybody knows the answer to that, please add it to the comments, because I've looked and I cannot find why that matters. Now, I can understand if you're doing a bulk of wheat to store on your counter for a couple of weeks, that I can see, because having that heated up like that and then sitting, it's going to degrade faster. But if you're using fresh milled wheat, does it matter whether it's steel burr or stone? Does it matter that it gets heated up during the grinding process? It's about to go in a very hot oven. I don't understand the logic there. And I just don't know. Anyway, so Pleasant Hill Grains, good place to get your grain mills and grains as far as wheat goes. The Nutri-Mill Harvest is a fairly new one. Nutri-Mill does a lot of the steel burrs. Their Harvest is a new stone ground that they've put out that's very pretty. It kind of looks like your mock mill or your Como. It's kind of got that similar wood looking, or wood or bamboo looking effect on it. And it's a top, so it has a small footprint for your counter, so you load it through the top and it comes out a little chute in the front. That one you're looking at about $500. There's the Como, and I believe the Classic's the most popular one. The cheapest one I found was $239. The most expensive was $3,000, which I think that was more of a professional, like something you do industrially. The Nutri-Mill Plus, it's a steel burr, was $279. And then the Mock Mill 100 plastic was about $363. And that's the starting. I believe Mock Mill has one that you can put on the front of your KitchenAid if you've got a KitchenAid, and that one's even cheaper. I had an old Magic Mill from like back in the 70s, and that one, it was a beast. I only paid $30 for it at a little church auction that we did, and it worked great. It still works. It just needs some fine tuning, and there's some, like, keeping it finer isn't, whatever it was, that tensioner doesn't work anymore. So it was kind of not working for that. So I ended up getting a Mock Mill 200 Pro. I spent a lot of money on it, but it was something that I wanted I know that I've had every intention of grinding wheat for the rest of my life, and here I'm not grinding wheat at all. I'm grinding grains. But with that being said, I just kind of wanted to give you a rough estimate. I saved for that mock mill. I put money aside whenever, we do a certain amount of spending cash every pay period, and I kept putting that money aside until I had enough to purchase my mock mill. And yeah, so it was worth it to me to spend big money on it. One of the things about these right now too, they're all out of stock. Ever since COVID, they have had a very hard time keeping up the stock on these items. It's become very popular. People are becoming more and more aware of being self-sufficient. Your whole grains store far longer than flour does. So for me to have a bucket of wheat down there for 30 years is not going to be a bad thing. It's going to be better than starving to death. Or in my case now, I'm learning to store other grains. But for the sake of the mills, that's just kind of a rundown. And I did a costing out of mills because I think that's just as important if you're going to be going into, the costing out of grains versus flours or different kinds of grains or whatever. It's good to know the base as well. It's not just the grains. And I'll get into that a little bit more. Well, I'll add a little bit more to that later. Okay, so to get back to this, what I did, I have an Azure list, an Amazon list, a Costco list, and a Winco list. I have a tendency to shop at these places a lot. Costco had, for the longest time, Costco was our number one go-to. We'd go to Winco for anything we couldn't get at Costco, and then we'd go to Amazon for everything else. Probably in the last year, I've just started shopping at Azure Standard, and I have found with the gluten-free grains, this is the cheapest place to find most of them, which is surprising. I always thought Winco was my cheaper place to go, but here you're looking at quality, quantity, and here you're just looking at quantity and cheaper. So it kind of depends on whether you're wanting organic, whether you're wanting a better quality of product, or, all those fun little thoughts. So those are things that you need to consider when you're costing this kind of stuff out. So I'm going to talk about sorghum. When I first started out, I started with a 5-pound bag. I wanted to see if I liked it. I was looking at 10 cents an ounce. So it came to like $8.03 for a 5-pound bag on Amazon to get, I think this was a 25-pound bag. It was $22.95. That's not right. 7 cents times $22.95. That's not right. Yeah, so don't pay attention to that one because I think that one's wrong. This just doesn't make any sense. But I believe it was $22.95 for a 5-pound bag. For a 25-pound bag was $24 at Azure Standard. On Amazon, it was $65. It was a brand name, probably like Bob's Red Mill or something like that. But to go from $24 to $65, we're looking at like you're tripling the cost. So millet for a 50-pound bag, it was $53.63 at Azure. See, I got that little whoops, I went backwards. It was $120.89 at Amazon. For the millet flour, now this is where the cost comparison is going to come in handy. For me, it was $45.94 to buy a 25-pound bag of millet flour. $45.94. It's $53.63 to get a 50-pound bag of millet seed or whole millet for grinding. So it's like barely more expensive to buy it whole than to buy it flour. On Amazon it was $116. You could get millet at Winco, but you're still looking at it's $1.08 per pound. So to get a 50-pound bag, you're looking at $60-something. Maybe for a 3-pound 26 ounce, it was $3.52. So millet flour at Azure was $45.94. At Amazon was $116.42. Sorghum flour, you're looking at $1.26 per ounce. So you're looking at $31.44 for a 25-pound bag, whereas I can get a 25-pound bag of sorghum grains for $24. Oat groats for a 25-pound bag, and I could only find it in a 25-pound bag. At Azure, this one was a little bit different. This one was $149.57 because it has to be the gluten-free, but I could find it on Amazon for $42.10. So in this instance, I will buy it from here versus here. 1 Degree Oats, Costco has them. The 5-pound bags, they were out of stock last when I went to go price them, but I did just buy a bag. I should see if I could find that price. I'll put the price on here. But like at Azure, it's $11.16 for a, I want to say it was a 3-pound bag. And for a 5-pound bag, I want to say it's around that same price at Costco. Tapioca starch. To get it at Azure, you're looking at $39 to get it on Amazon. And this is a 25-pound bag. $80, $79.25. At Winco, it's $1.98 a pound, so you're looking at $42 for a 25-pound bag. So one of the things here too with the starch, I'm going to show you cassava flour. And I just bought the 5-pound bag that I showed you in the video earlier, and it was $12.52 at Azure for 5 pounds. Okay, so I just looked that up. This was my order from last time. I'm gonna go check out my Amazon real quick, and we're gonna look at cassava flour. So the first one that shows up for 2 pounds, we're looking at $15.99, which is already more expensive than the 5-pound bag I got at Azure. Here's a 5-pound cassava flour for $19.20. I'm gonna say that's the cheapest one, so I'm gonna put $19.20 for 5 pounds here. And they didn't have it at Winco. So here's what I'm understanding, fairly recently finding out. Starches, basically they take the cassava root, they grind it or shred it, they get it in a bunch of water, they stir it all up and they mash it all up, and then they pull the water out from the pulp of the cassava root. And then in that water, they let it set, they let all the starch settle or whatever, dump all the water. I don't know how they finish the starching process, but it's much higher processed than cassava flour. Cassava starch is literally the starch off of the root. The cassava flour is the root itself that has been ground up, dehydrated, ground again, and created into a flour. So you're getting all of it. You're getting the fiber, all the nutrients, all the chunks of the cassava root. When you use things like starch, it actually affects your glycemic. It has a higher glycemic index than whole wheat flour. And so in finding that information out, it was important for me to look for a cassava flour versus tapioca starch. My battery's about to die. Psyllium husk. Okay, this is one of those things kind of like your grain mill that it's not part of the grain. It's not the grain itself. It is the stuff that you need to have in order to make the grains function like a wheat or like a flour. And so it's important to have your psyllium husk or xanthan gum. I personally like psyllium husk better than xanthan. I feel like it's less processed. And this is psyllium husk powder. I didn't realize you could use whole psyllium husk. I just recently learned that one too. But you're looking at $11 for a 5-pound bag from Azure Standard. You're looking at $25 for a 4-pound bag on Amazon. So Azure was a place that I bought this. Chickpea flour is another one that I've recently discovered that you can use. Now I like to soak my beans for 24 hours. I like that it makes them easier to digest. I probably will never use bean flour. Don't quote me on that. I might come to it later on in time, but for now, it's not something that I'm going to choose to use. But to buy the bean was $1.33 a pound. To buy the flour was $2 a pound. So I will definitely buy the bean versus buying the flour. Looking at rice, you would get your rice wherever you get your rice. I have tried jasmine rice We usually get our rices from Costco. Like I get my 25-pound bag of jasmine rice for $28 at Costco. You can get it here. I don't see jasmine. I don't think I did that for Azure. Basmati, $24.99. Baking wise, I'd rather do basmati or just a regular white or brown rice versus jasmine. Jasmine is way too aromatic, and it makes everything taste like jasmine rice. Some things I'm sure would be great for that, but things like quick breads or muffins or cookies, I would prefer a bland rice to jasmine rice. I looked at buckwheat, yellow peas, there's split peas, red lentils, hominy. These are all things that you could use for flours. I started to look them up, but I realized they're not things that I will probably use anytime in the near future. Right now, I'm still trying to just figure the normal stuff out. I might add these when I start experimenting more. But here's some of the cost, like that's how much it is per pound at Winco. And then like I looked at Azure at buckwheat for 25 pounds, you're looking at 13 cents an ounce. For yellow peas, you're looking at 6 cents an ounce. I didn't do the math. Anyway, that is how I costed it out. I realized that Azure is definitely the way to go for most of this stuff. And at this point, I would probably recreate this list on my computer with like Azure and all the things I would buy at Azure, Costco, the things I would buy at Costco, Winco, the things I'd buy at Winco, and Amazon, the things I'd buy at Amazon. And I would probably keep that list there with a price that does not, that will have to be adjustable. It's going to change. Prices change all the time. We all know that, right? So that's how I cost everything out. I will probably create a spreadsheet. I probably should have put it on a spreadsheet for this, but that's not how I costed it out. So I wanted you to be a part of that. And I didn't want to have you sit there for 2 hours with me as I went back and forth between all the different stores and got prices. But thanks for joining me on this adventure. Go ahead and hit subscribe, thumbs up if you like it, hit that little bell if you want notifications. I'm trying to get a video out every Monday. And yeah, thanks for coming along.